What I have studied this semester is what the Bible says about political leadership. The two texts where I searched for messages about political leadership were the books of Romans and Daniel's. The Apostle Paul wrote Romans as a series of epistles, letters written to give advice to specific religious leaders within the Roman Empire and were written prior to widespread persecution of Christians throughout Rome. According to Paul in Romans 13:1-2, there is no authority except from God, and authorities that exist are appointed by God. Therefore, whoever resists the authority resists the ordinance of God, and those who resist will bring judgment on themselves. This suggests that Christians should obey their rulers or they will be punished by God. One interpretation by theologian Marcus Borg states that Paul's famous generalizations about governing authorities were intended not as abiding principles to be applied in every situation, but as specific advice to particular people facing a historically identifiable set of circumstances. Such interpretations make Romans seem less applicable to the many generalizations the texts are used for. However, I personally disagree with this interpretation, since the overall messages are still simple enough that they can be maintained in our society. Douglas Hicks, affiliate professor of religion at Oxford University, states that civic and political leaders will help shape the terms in which we navigate our religious differences and commonalities. Leading requires bringing the people together despite their varied backgrounds and interests to achieve a common goal. This interpretation of Romans uses Romans 13 to state the qualities necessary to make a good leader. Personally, I interpret Romans 13 to mean that people should obey the government until the government begins to treat its people unjustly rather than protect them. Part of this interpretation of mine is based on the fact that Emperor Nero began unjustly persecuting Christians only a few years after Romans was written. Daniel is one of the people who was taken to Babylon as a ransom by Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, had laid siege to the city of Jerusalem and took several hundred Israelites back to Babylon instead of attacking Jerusalem. Robert Anderson states that the great prophets, ranging from Amos to Ezekiel, laid the blame for this disobedience at the feet of the leaders of Israel, both temporal and spiritual. Yet they are only part of the nation. The process of disobedience and subsequent process of destruction catch up to the whole people. This interpretation suggests that the leaders are the ones who caused Babylon to exile the Israelites as a punishment from God. Many prophets tried to get the leaders to fix their society, and yet they did nothing. Joshua Mark, a writer and scholar, states that Nebuchadnezzar was an agent of God, used as a scourge against the faithless followers of Yahweh. This interpretation ties in the idea from Romans that leaders are appointed by God, and that Nebuchadnezzar was appointed by God for the task of punishing the Israelites for being disobedient. Now, while the book of Daniel is set in a time of punishment for disobedience, Daniel and his friends demonstrate that God is what is needed to be saved. That faith in God is what is needed to be saved. Nebuchadnezzar attempted to kill Daniel's friends in a fire after they refused to worship the Babylonian gods, and when this fails, God saved them. Nebuchadnezzar states in Daniel's 3:28, "Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who sent his angel and delivered his servants who trusted in him." This demonstrates the point that in order to be saved by God, one must first put their trust in him. Overall, I think that the book of Daniel makes the point that God punishes the disobedient and then protects the faithful. Society obedient to the Lord must be maintained by proper leadership in order to ensure that the society continues to remain obedient to God. In conclusion, what I found the Bible to say about political leadership is that God chooses the leaders of nations selectively, and then he does so in either in favor of the people who show strong faith in him or to punish those who disobey him.